Great song and all, but wouldn't this have made more sense as the last song of 2012 and not the very first song of 2013? The last release from TVDS on Monstercat, and if his idea of going out with a bang is making 4 versions of the same exact song, then he did a fantastic job. Actually, this one's pretty different from the other 3. The debut of Danica Nadeau on Monstercat, and also the only time on Monstercat where they had this weird little ampersand behind the artist logos. I'm kinda glad that's an idea that never caught on to future releases, though. Gray is a color you'll associate direct with the most throughout this series, and I mean that both figuratively and literally. According to Televisor themselves, this song doesn't have any sort of sampling whatsoever, so even the vocal chops you hear throughout the song were all done and made from scratch. While this is a great song, the name has so much meme potential. According to Varian, A Night in Bangalore sounds like this. Who would have guessed? Okay, your last song was called Flatline, and now this one's called Addicted. Are you, like, okay, man? I haven't tried it or anything, but I doubt this song is gonna get you out of bed in the morning. Whatever this track makes you feel, it did it right. A lot of people like to compare this to Stereotronic style back in the day. Personally, I don't care, because it sounds damn near nothing like the original, and that's all that matters to me. 2013 may not have been my personal favorite year of Monstercat, but holy shit, it's difficult to argue how quality it was. Yet another iconic release from the nerds. They really just constantly hit it out of the park these first few years on the label, didn't they? The same song, but without the vocals. The same song, but the intro is slightly different. The same song... an a cappella? Really? Whatever. The fact that this wasn't called From the Ashes, given the whole Phoenix theming and whatnot, is kind of incredible. AU5's Monstercat debut, and this one has surprisingly stood the test of time quite well. Your typical Stereotronic special with the side of, I have nothing to say. If I have to explain to you what Flight is, hello and welcome to your first day as a Monstercat fan. You got through again? Whatever, this is the last time. God, this always sounds so much tamer than I remember it sounding. Bliss has never felt so plain. This would be the last time we'd see Day 1 on the label, which is a shame because he was a great name to have around during that era. This song actually being one of my favorites from him. Pretty unique at the time, even if I never loved it myself. It might just be a me thing, but does anyone else think of Swedish House Mafia's Don't You Worry Child when listening to these vocals? This isn't the last time we see these two collaborate, and trust me, that's a very good thing. It's enough to make a grown man cry. Not one of his stronger releases, but not bad either. Without hearing the song beforehand, I'd love for you all to guess what this sounds like, just based on this music video. 2013 was not the busiest year for Noisestorm in terms of releases, as he only put out 2 singles throughout the entire year. One was super underrated and a really fun banger, and the other is Together. These guys just cannot stick with a logo, can they? Not the most prolific release from either artist, but a solid one. I know I didn't mention it earlier, but for those who are curious, it stands for In Your Face, Fuck Everything. I'm not kidding. Protostar's Monstercat debut, and god, people hated this one when it first came out. Holy crap. It was around this point where trance on Monstercat would kinda die down for a while, with Mitchell Claxton being the only artist who was consistently putting it out on the label. At least up until he left, then it just kinda became whoever felt like doing it. Seemingly out of nowhere, Bustray ended up being one of the main D&B artists on the label alongside Muzzy and 2/3. At least for a while. I mean, his releases always had this sort of atmosphere that you wouldn't really get from the other two. Oh yeah, forgot the song had a remix package. Slightly different from the original, I guess. Satisfyingly different from the original. Okay-ishly different from the original? Aw yeah, the debut of 7 Minutes Dead, one of my favorite Monstercat artists of all time, and arguably the most underrated. Probably the least exciting of the 4 tracks, but it's still pretty cool. I might not have a choice but to geek over every 7 Minutes Dead song in this entire series, so just a heads up. I've always loved how this one ended. Thank God the title came with an English translation. Monstercat had a free remix week, consisting of 3 remixes from recently released Monstercat songs that you could download for free. And not that I was a fan of Tech's Monstercat releases at all, but this one caught my attention the most. This was a fun take on the original. My least favorite of the 3, no question. A logo that they settled on, and even eventually turned into color. About damn time. Simple, but it works. EPSOL's Monstercat debut, and I can't really put my finger on it, but his first few Monstercat releases just never really stuck with me, personally. I do like this one a bit more, though. And odd. Very odd, but pretty big collab at the time. Speaking of which, on paper, this should not have worked as well as it did. In execution, it's fucking awesome. And the fact that they never once collaborated after this is insane to me. The first of many collabs from these two. God damn it, Direct. You just had to break the streak of what would have been 5 collabs in a row? Are you fucking kidding me? God. Do better. This year was just full of weird-ass collabs that somehow worked surprisingly well, wasn't it? Finally, the actual debut of the teal/turquoise color of new disco/indie dance. And given Televisor's presence on the label at this point, I am a little upset that the first official release under this color didn't go to them. And also finally, the first official release of the dark green glitch hop visualizer. Someone please remind me on July 5th, 2050 to do absolutely nothing but play this song all day. I think this is where Faint started to show his more melodic side, and it was a nice change of pace at the time. Look, nothing against the song, but this music video outshines it tenfold. Ah shit.
Here we go again!
Believe it or not, Heartbeat also received a handful of remixes, this one being from Cash Cash, and if you recognize that name, most likely you've heard Overtime, and that's exactly how I found out myself. Seeing Rogue's transition from his Monstercat debut up to this point is so satisfying. Turning a song into a meldub version of the original surprisingly works well depending on who's remixing it. Regarded as one of the worst remixes on Monstercat, even if the remix package as a whole isn't considered a Monstercat release anymore. A fun, lighthearted, bouncy electro house version of the original. I'm not sure if unique is the right word, but it's definitely different. A neat one, but ultimately pretty forgettable. Listen, I'm all about artists changing things up and trying new things, but I honestly prefer their trance releases way more than I did their house material. Kicking off Project 46's Continuum EP, this was actually a really solid package across all 3 tracks. Just, I have next to nothing to say about them. Listen, if there was anything Project 46 knew how to do, it was how to make a proper house banger. Not my favorite Marvel show, but it had its moments, I guess. I don't know, I think it is. Even to this very day, I don't think there's ever been a Rogue song quite as euphoric as this. Tristam's Truth also got its own remix package, and although none of the remixes topped the original for most people, this one would have been the closest to doing so. Also, yes, this is the same Candyland from Nirvana for the newer fans out there. From my knowledge, this one was also a fan favorite remix from back in the day. It's dab, and of fucking course it was. To be honest with you, I was never quite sure what this one was going for. That's not how you spell Project 46. If the first second of this remix doesn't tell you everything you need to know right there and then, the rest of the song absolutely will. Okay, I'll give credit where credit is due. Most of these remixes are actually fairly decent, which is something I wish I could say about most remix packages based off one song. I love songs that you don't end up listening to again for like years, and then when you finally come back to it, you're like, why did I forget about this? This self-titled EP was a good look at a name I wish we would have seen more of on the label. Also, this EP for some reason never had an official visualizer attached to it, which is strange considering how much fun it is. I'll say this, if they're good at doing anything, it's justifying the second half of their name. It's always an awesome feeling for an EP to stick with one specific genre, and then the one song that's completely different from the rest ends up being your favorite one. Wait. The fuck? Is this robot trying to kill itself? What the fuck? The title really says it all, doesn't it? Remember when Virtual Riot had releases on Monstercat? Yeah. I'm sorry, but if BioShock Infinite gameplay is considered a... Here, let me put one quotation there and another one there. There we go. A music video? Then Me Taking a Shit should be an award-winning film. Kicking off Pegboard Nerds' Guilty Pleasures EP, this version definitely feels more Tristam-y than it does Pegboard Nerds-y. Their most beloved... Yeah, I can't even lie, people hated this fucking thing. I'm doing alright, how about you? I hear people aren't quite in love with the recent stuff, so, what's been going on there? Okay, I see you still touchy. I wish I could make something like this when someone doesn't accept my friend request. The final song that got released under this visualizer. And honestly, it's a pretty solid tune to go out on. One of my absolute favorite details with what people refer to as the stars layout is that not only do some of the stars match the genre color, but the stars themselves move along to the beat of the song, which is just so awesome. Oh, and the song's fine, I guess. One of the only times Monstercat goofed up on the yellow for their electro releases, but it's fine, cause at least this song's a banger. I would argue that most of Fractal's solo releases were better than his AU5 collabs, and there's a lot. Of both. A couple more departures here. For one, this would be the last time we would see Stereotronic on the label. Not that I loved everything he put out, but he had some cool releases during his time on Monstercat. And this was Throttle's last release on the label. Obviously he would return 6 years later with Dreamer, but don't expect any more Throttle in this series until then. I would knock this song for not being my favorite of Tut Tut Child's work, but Laura Brum. Even I gotta admit, when his stuff is pretty, it's really pretty. Can't say I'm the fan of this one. Another beginning of a beautiful partnership. Is there an award for the slickest Noisestorm song by any chance? And can this song have it? One of the more obscure releases, as it never made it onto any of Monstercat's mainline comps at the time. Damn, 2 Cheeto-flavored songs in a row? I'll take it. Not only the debut of legendary household name Haywire, but also the last of the 4 songs that I mentioned you would hear during the Monstercat's original podcast opening. And for those of you newer fans who don't really know that much of Haywire's older stuff, oh, you're in for quite a treat. The unofficial, official first song in the wizard step genre. This is definitely one of the songs that you listen to and just think about life. Direct calling out most of the fan base on this one. Yeesh. The older brother that everyone likes. The younger brother that most people forget about. The debut of Favorite, and for the longest time I always thought his name was Farvrite, with an R. Don't ask why I thought it was that, I'm chalking it up to being 14 and stupid. This song doesn't live up to its name because it doesn't force you to sporadically bounce across every wall in your house. Between the handful of songs on the label with Dream of You in the title, I think this annoys me the most just because it says it 100 times. I mean, it's okay, I guess. I don't have anything clever to say about this one, it's just fun. You can't spell manslaughter without laughter. And there wasn't really a whole lot to say about Muzzy during this era, honestly, but this was sort of the period where he started transitioning into his more modern sound, and it definitely caught people's attention with this release, as well as an EP that we'll talk about here in a little bit. I can't believe it's 2024 and I still don't really care for this. I love when a snare hits that perfect range on the visualizer that every time it hits it gives you the middle finger. You know, it's really gonna suck when I have to talk about Monstercat after their last release on the label, which is toward the very end of 2015, keep in mind, so I think I'm just gonna soak up their presence as much as I can while they're still a part of the series. Sari Vic. Not my favorite from the EP, but it definitely carries that signature Pegboard nerd charm. Seems to be a fan favorite. Seems to be. After all this time, I don't think I've ever heard the original, and at this point, I don't know if I want to. Okay, listen, just cause you've made all these fan favorite memorable songs throughout your career thus far, doesn't mean you two are above the law. Come on, you're better than that. God, even now, this is just so genius. Noted, do not take parenting advice from these two. Is it just me or does it smell unusually purple for an Insane-like song? Solero does his best stereotronic impression. Project 46's last label release for a couple years or so. I'll admit though, this was a really strong send-off tune. This would also be the last time we'd see Crowell on the label for a while, but at least in that sense, the title's pretty fitting. As of writing this, I'm not that anymore. I don't even know what the fuck a Green Storm is, but who the fuck cares? The song bangs. As much as I like Fractal stuff outside of the AU5 collabs, I always thought this was one of the weaker ones. The debut of Nitro Fun, and just to put in perspective how impressive this remix was at the time, this dude was like 14 when he made this. Remember, we're still in 2013 right now. For some reason, I always forget about this remix, which sucks because it's not half bad. One of the guys from IFE after the two split apart, and you can for sure hear it. Am I the only person who listened to Different Heaven stuff outside of Monstercat before this remix? Yes, I'm including all the Aerochord stuff in the series because it's history and it's a pretty reasonably important chunk of Monstercat history at that. I think you missed a logo there, guys. This remix just makes so much sense in execution. Oh, me? No, I just got something in my ears. About time these guys made a song together and... Wait. Where do I know? Hold on. Oh my god. Feed me to the wolves for saying this, but I think I like the original just a tad bit more. This has some cool moments, this has some weird moments, and this has some cute moments. We have now entered what most people consider to be Rogue's peak season. This is one of those songs that you should exclusively listen to while looking out a window on a rainy day. A collab that works surprisingly well given how different their styles typically are. Is it just me, or does this feel like it belongs in a horror movie? Not only Mitchell Claxton's last appearance on the label, but at the time this was considered the longest song in Monstercat history, sitting at a runtime of about 9:37. It even held that record for a solid 8.5 years until Infected Mushroom and Bliss's A Cookie from Space beat it at 10:20. And I'm not counting the Silk backlog here, I don't even want to hear it in the comments. And then there's this masterpiece. For some reason, a lot of Monstercat's aquatic-themed dubstep material is just so good. and this is no exception. Most EPs usually have that one song that just feels a bit weaker than the rest of it, but it's not bad. I think these two are just one of the greatest examples of musical synergy I think the label's ever seen. They just work so well together. Usually this phrase is reserved for when my birthday rolls around. Cold. I'm sorry. Muzzy's The Takeover EP would be the first time we'd see his ability to bring that cinematic charm to his music that most people associate him with, and Timberwolf to this day does not disappoint. Does it sound a bit dated? Yeah. Oh, for fuck's sake, where's Aquaman gonna live now? 7 Minutes Dead would be the type of dude to go straight to Act 3 without even mentioning the first two. There's definitely something about this song that just gets the good memories flowing. I love how certain deep cuts from an EP are so fun to listen to, yet they end up being some of the most overlooked ones on the entire label. One can argue that this was the first ever future bass song on the label, which is what that color represents. But the official first future bass song on Monstercat isn't introduced until 2014. Good song though. Rogue just casually flexing how good his music is, no matter the genre. Pixar reference? Hey look, it's the guy who dropped Emergency 3 times at the same time. Yeah, remember when Barely Alive did some remixes for Monstercat? Oh, and also Astronaut's debut. Honestly, at this point, I don't think the label was ready for any kind of trap at all. Honestly, it's a solid remix. Not much else to say about it. No. Just... no. I find it difficult to describe Insane-like songs past just Insane-like doing Insane-like things. You for sure can hear the Toto child in here. It's the original without vocals. What more do you want me to say? For the people who didn't expect a whole lot of trumpet in this song, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's not like his name is Timmy Bagpipes. That one time Fractal became the Avatar. Think of this as a precursor to what his debut album would sort of feel like later down the line. And you bet we're going to cover that in this series. I don't think a better title could have been made for this song.
Oh, no, not the beast! Not the beast! Ah!
Like I said, trap just wasn't meant for 2013 Monstercat. This was a good attempt, though. House was becoming a genre that Feige was slowly growing into, and this was a good first sign of things to come from it. I wish we had more collab EPs nowadays, or at the very least ones like this. This was the release that proved both AU5 and Fractal are canonically colorblind. Okay, this? Best song on the EP, no question, hands down, point blank, period. Not my favorite Mortal Kombat character, but he's fun. Simply one of the greatest things the color yellow was ever a part of, right next to french fries. Dog and Frisky. If the original felt like going on an actual Apollo mission. I know it's not pronounced dicks, but like, come on. Hearing how far Barely Alive has come from this remix to their most recent EP on Bass Rush is fucking wild. Genuinely do not know what to say about this one, it's just kinda there. Is it called Redemption cause it fucking died? I bet seeing this color again for the first time in 2 years made people go fucking nuts. 11 million views later and I still think this is one of their most underrated songs. In Varian's words, it's Finnish Viking epic orchestral Nightwish trance metal movie trailer EDM at 140 BPM. According to Monstercat themselves. Listen, I could go on and on about this song, but most of you already know what it is and how big of a release it became for both Tristam and Monstercat. And if you don't know what this song is, then may I kindly encourage you to get the fuck on that. Like, right now. This is the end of the video, by the way, so skedaddle. Bye-bye. Go on now. Go listen to it and tell me what you think afterwards. Go! Shoo already. For fuck's sake.